So you're planning a road trip around New Zealand. We know it can be very overwhelming because how do you even choose where to go? In this video, we share our 2-week itinerary. We look at our accommodation and activities with the costs involved, and we'll also be giving you a few general tips with the full budget at the end of the video. I'll start with the factors we had to consider when putting our whole itinerary together. Our trip was planned around me being in Milford Sound on my big birthday. And by me, I mean me and Craig and my parents. We also had to consider when Craig would be able to get leave. And from there, we had to have a look at the Cook Strait ferry prices and availability. Working around these factors, we decided to leave on the 29th of December and return on the 11th of January. Our roadie started and ended in Auckland. Our time was really limited and the itinerary includes a lot of driving. But we think we got to see all the highlights of the South Island. So here's our Express New Zealand roadie itinerary. From Auckland, we drove all the way down to Wellington where we spent 2 nights. On the 3rd day, we woke up really early to cross the Cook Strait and we pushed all the way through to Christchurch where we spent 3 nights at my cousin's place. After that, it was 4 nights in Queenstown, 2 nights in Fox Glacier, 1 night in Pixon, crossing the ferry again, our last night in New Plymouth, and on the final day of our trip, we drove back to Auckland. In total, we did 3,600 kilometers, with day 1, 12, 13, and 14 mostly spent in the car. Our total fuel cost came to $738.03. I'll also include the ferry cost here. We booked with the Inter-Islander ferry, which came to $1,040.40 for the 4 of us plus our car. And that's a return ticket. With a top 10 holiday park membership, you also get a small discount for the ferry. If you have an option to start in one place and end in another, that might help you to cut down on driving time and maybe spend a bit more time in some of the places. If you can include a ferry crossing in your itinerary, we would highly recommend it. The views sailing in and out of Picton is just absolutely beautiful, and it's just a whole experience in itself. We would have liked to maybe spend a night in Taupo or Rotorua on the North Island, possibly a night in Lake Tekapo. We also missed out on driving through Arthur's Pass. We missed out on the Blue Pools, the Hokitika Gorge, and we would have liked to spend more time at the Punakaiki Pancake Rocks. But as our time was limited, we had to prioritize what we wanted to see, and we have no regrets. In our opinion, the best would be to hire a van and have more than 2 weeks to see this beautiful country, but there are plenty of videos about that. So please remember, this is our express 14-day itinerary. When it comes to accommodation, there are plenty of options, but we're just going to share with you the places that we stayed at. In Wellington, we booked the Atura Hotel, which came to $558 for 2 nights for 2 rooms, which was for the 4 adults. It was quite central. We could see the beehive from our window and it made it easy to just walk the city. In Christchurch, we stayed with my cousin, but if we had to book accommodation, we'd probably look at something close to the city centre. Our Queenstown accommodation was the first one that we booked, and even though it was months in advance, we couldn't find anything within our budget in the town centre. Not that we're complaining, because the Airbnb that we found was absolutely amazing. Our requirements was that it had to have a balcony and a braai and a beautiful view, and it had all 3. But we did have to drive into town and pay for parking each time. So this 2-bedroom Airbnb cost $2,205 for 4 nights. In Fox Glacier, we stayed in a top 10 holiday park. Again, with a membership, you get a bit of a discount. We stayed in a 2-bedroom unit. It had beautiful views of the mountains. It also had a communal area where we could have a braai. So we really liked the accommodation in Fox Glacier. Now, for our 1 night in Pixon, we were only going to spend a few hours there because we arrived really late and we had to depart early the next morning for the ferry. So we looked for the cheapest accommodation that we could find, which wasn't a bed and a dorm room. So we found these cute little cabins which could only fit a double bed, and we had to make use of the ablution blocks of the campsite, which is fun. This came to $195.50 for 2 cabins. Lastly, in New Plymouth, we booked in the Grand Millennium Hotel, which was just across the road from the beach. It was a 1-bedroom with an extra double bed in the lounge, and this came to $308.55. So our total accommodation cost was $3,787.05. So that's $291 per night, or $73 per person. Just for a comparison, I went to the Juicy website to find the price of renting a van. So I'll just leave that here. Eating out in New Zealand can be a very costly experience, so we kept our restaurant visits down to a minimum. Most of the accommodation we booked was self-catering. So we did breakfast at home and we packed a lot of ham and cheese sandwiches. Yes, we got made fun of in the comments of our videos, but hey, anything to keep the costs as low as possible. For dinners, we did a lot of braais, and if you're not from South Africa, a braai is a barbecue. With my favorite braai being the one on the night before my birthday. We went all out and got some really nice meat to cook on the fire. And also in Fox Glacier, the barbecue was set up so you had this amazing view of the mountain. It was just so cool. Our total spends on food came to $1,721.76, which worked out to just over $150 per day for 4 people. Just keep in mind, in Christchurch, we didn't spend too much because my cousin just spoiled us completely rotten. I also left coffee out of this total because I wanted to see how much did we actually spend on that. The total came to $254.67 for 3 people because my mom doesn't drink coffee. So that is about $18 a day, which sounds about right because most of the time the cost of a cup of coffee comes to between $5 and $7. Activities will tear into your budget very fast. So my advice is to book some of them way in advance so that you can go math, and by the time your trip comes around, it's basically free. Right? That makes sense. But if you're wondering how much we spent on activities, here we go. In Wellington, we did a one-way cable car, which came to $24 for 4 people. In Christchurch, we got a gondola and tram combo, which came to $308 for 4. And in Queenstown, we did the luge and cable car combo, which was also $308 for 4. Milford Sound, we booked way in advance, and it came to $913.50. Again for 4. So let's get into the tours. Milford Sound was an absolute highlight and we thoroughly enjoyed the tour even though it was 12 hours long. Our whole trip revolved around this day for my big birthday. This is 40! And it did not disappoint. Some may think that there are too many people on these tours and that it's too touristy, but we think that everyone should have the opportunity to see the 8th World Wonder. And even though there were a lot of people, we didn't even notice it because we were too focused on the beauty of Milford Sound. Doing the luge in Queenstown was something I never thought that I would get to do with my parents. We got competitive racing down the mountain, and it was probably the most fun we had on the entire trip. In Christchurch, we left the itinerary up to my cousin, and it was just so cool to have them show us their new hometown. Just being able to go up the gondola, see those views with family was absolutely incredible. And again, something that we never in our wildest dreams thought that we would do together. We're so glad that we also got to do the tram because the conductor would give interesting facts all along the way. Book Me is a great platform to find activities to do in New Zealand, and it was by far the lowest price that we could find for our Milford Sound cruise, but we'd recommend checking out various sites and comparing prices. There are a lot of free things that you can do in New Zealand, like amazing hikes. The only kind of hike that we did was going to all the lookout points in Glacier country. But if you have the time, please go and check out the hikes like the Hooker Valley Track and the likes. We are dying to get back down to South Island to do all of them. In Wellington, we got to do a lot of free stuff like the Te Papa Museum, the Parliament Tour, and also walking through the Botanic Gardens. Before we get to the final budget, I just want to share a few general tips. Let's start with crossing from the North to the South Island Checking that ferry schedule is very important because the dates that we actually wanted to come back wasn't available. So make sure to check that out before you book anything else. Even though we've seen on other people's videos that they would book as they got there, it probably depends on the time of year, but it was really busy in December and January. So just to be safe, check that out. Don't count on Google Maps for the exact time that it's going to take from point A to point B. We added at least 2 to 3 hours to each driving day because we stopped every 5 seconds to take photos of yet another beautiful mountain or lake or coastline. It's just so much beauty and we wanted to take it all in. Take your time, and if you're in a van, this obviously would be a lot better because if you find a great spot and there's a freedom camp close by, you can just stay there. You might want to know what time of the year is best to come to New Zealand, and that completely depends on the kind of experience you want to have. For us in December, it was beautiful summer weather most of the time, and Craig was always ready to jump out the car into the lake or the river or the ocean, wherever we were driving at the time. And then we saw some beautiful autumn pictures coming from Queenstown and the surrounding areas. And then of course in winter you can expect some amazing snowy sights. Just keep in mind that some roads might close because of snow. Not only was our time limited, but our space was also limited. My mom and dad shared one suitcase and Craig and I also shared one. So that means I only had half a suitcase to pack for all the seasons because in New Zealand, that is what you can expect. We went from rain to wind to sunshine, and if it's cold in Milford Sound in the middle of summer, I can only imagine what it would be like in winter. So my top tip for packing is to have a really good rain jacket at least. The roads were actually really nice to drive on, and there were a lot less cars on the roads than I thought there would be. We also drive on the left side of the road here, and we also keep to the left. If it's a busy and narrow walkway, I'll just leave it at that. And then when you're traveling with a group of people, especially on a road trip, you are in each other's faces the whole time. So don't feel guilty for taking a bit of me time every now and again. Make sure there's always snacks around, and coffee can cure any morning crankiness. Let us know if you have any general road trip tips, or if you have any tips just in general for driving around in New Zealand. Okay, it's time for the budget. We saved up for this trip over a really long time, and we also paid certain things over the course of 6 months. We've never actually put it all together, and we thought we'd just do it for this video so you can have a rough idea of what to expect. Our petrol cost came to $738.03. The ferry was $1,040.40. Accommodation came to $3,787.05. Activities $1,553.50. Coffee $254.67. Food $1,721.76, with a grand total of $9,095.41. That is the cost for 4 adults on a 14-day express roadie through New Zealand, trying to see and do as much as possible. We hope this helps in your planning, and if anyone that has done something similar can just put their tips down in the comments, I'm sure that'd be super helpful. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye!